Would you look at this absolute nonsense? Chief researcher Dravthalon chittered, their crystalline antennae vibrating with a mixture of fascination and horror. The senior xenobiologists' eyes were fixed on the observation chamber below, where their latest Terran test candidate was, by all scientific definitions, clinically dead. Yet, somehow the insufferable creature was still moving. That's not possible, Junior. Researcher Rinzel stammered, their normally iridescent scales fading to a sickly pale green. We've recorded complete cardiac arrest. Brain activity flatlined exactly to point from microcycles ago. The specimen should be dead. Yes, absolutely. Dravthalon's mandibles clicked in what their species considered a dry chuckle. Someone really should inform the Terran of this minor technical detail, though I doubt they'd care. Below in the chamber, the Terran designation Ethan Cade was indeed very much deceased, according to every medical scanner they possessed. He was also, with equal certainty, attempting to crawl toward the chamber's exit with single-minded determination, leaving a trail of red vital fluid in his wake. Should we stop him? Rinzel's voice quavered. Their species had been studying humans for several cycles now, but they still hadn't quite adjusted to the sheer impossibility of these beings. Oh yes, because that worked so well the last time, Dravthalon responded, their antennae drooping in resignation. Need I remind you of incident 47B when we tried to restrain that female Terran specimen who had, and I quote from the official report, only sustained immediately fatal trauma to 73% of vital organs? Rinzel shuddered, their scales rippling in remembered horror. 3 security officers ended up in medical stasis. One still starts molting uncontrollably whenever someone mentions the word pancreas. Precisely. Dravthalon adjusted their observation goggles, zooming in on their persistently mobile test candidate. The only logical course of action is to continue gathering data. For science, Rinzel echoed weakly, already pulling up a fresh holographic observation form. Test candidate continues locomotion despite complete systemic failure. Current theory, sheer spite. Add profound stubbornness to the potential causative factors, Dravthalon suggested, watching as Marcus somehow managed to prop himself up against a wall. The Terran's vital signs remained obstinately absent, but he was now attempting to stand. And perhaps a note about their species' apparent inability to grasp simple, organic concepts like termination. A third researcher burst into the observation room, their ceremonial science robes askew. Chief, you need to see this immediately. Junior researcher Tove Rima waved a data tablet frantically. We've decoded more of the test candidate's last verbal statements. Oh, this should be good, Dravthalon sighed. What profound insights into Terran psychology have we gained? Tove Rima cleared their throat and read from the tablet, can't die yet. Still gotta feed my cat. There was a moment of profound silence in the observation room, broken only by the steady drip of Terran vital fluids below, and the soft beeping of machines confirming that yes, the test candidate was absolutely, unquestionably deceased. Their cat, Rinzel questioned. A small predatory companion animal, Tove Rima explained. Apparently, this particular specimen is named Captain Paws. Dravthalon's antennae twitched violently. Are you telling me that this Terran is defying the fundamental laws of biology because of a pet? Adding responsibility to small furry creatures to the list of termination-negating factors, Rinzel murmured, their stylus scratching against the holographic surface. Below, Marcus had successfully achieved vertical status and was now shambling toward the reinforced door with what could only be described as grim determination. The vital sign monitors continued their steady drone of nullified life functions. This defies every principle of xenobiology we've established, Dravthalon declared, their professional composure finally cracking. A species cannot simply decide that termination is inconvenient and therefore optional. Apparently, humans didn't get that memo, Tove Rima observed dryly. Should we inform the High Council that we need to revise the fundamental principles of life and termination again? No, absolutely not. Dravthalan's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. I am not submitting another report explaining how humans have casually violated what we thought were universal constants. The last time, they demoted 3 senior researchers to algae cultivation duty. Do you know how hard it is to maintain scientific dignity while growing space kelp? A loud clang from below drew their attention. Marcus had reached the door and was now attempting to dot. Was he trying to pick the lock with his own broken finger bone? Fascinating improvised tool use, Rinzel noted professionally. Though I do question the structural integrity of using one's own skeletal system as a lock-picking device, add creative problem-solving in post-mortem state to the observation log, Dravthalan ordered, trying to maintain some semblance of scientific protocol. And someone please check if we've received those reinforced containment field upgrades we requested after the marathon runner incident. Still backordered, Tovrima reported glumly. Apparently, every research station studying humans has requested them. The manufacturers can't keep up with demand. A triumphant click echoed from the chamber, followed by the distinct sound of a security door swinging open. 3 sets of alien eyes stared in disbelief. Did he just Ren? Zell couldn't even finish the sentence. Successfully breached containment while technically deceased. Yes, he did. Dravthalan's voice had taken on the slightly hysterical tone of a researcher watching their entire understanding of the universe crumble before their eyes. Because of course he did. He has a cat to feed. Should we alert security? Oh, please. Dravthalan waved a limb dismissively. What are they going to do? Kill him? The 3 researchers watched as their test candidate, still registering 0 life signs, began navigating the corridor with surprising coordination for a dead person. Start drafting the incident report, Dravthalan ordered, already dreading the inevitable response from their superiors. And someone look up the nutritional requirements of Earth felines. If we're going to have our fundamental understanding of life and termination shattered, we might as well ensure the cat gets fed. Rinzel raised their stylus uncertainly. Should I classify this under experimental anomaly or typical Terran behavior? Dravthalan's antennae drooped even further. At this point, just file it under humans being humans. It's easier than trying to explain the inexplicable. The research facility's emergency alert system was having an existential crisis. Its programming was quite clear about how to classify various security breaches, everything from minor containment failure to catastrophic dimensional rift. However, nowhere in its extensive database was there a protocol for technically deceased test candidate casually strolling through restricted areas while leaving a trail of vital fluids. Attention, all personnel, the AI finally announced, its usual crisp tones tinged with uncertainty. We have a situation, please avoid Sector 7 due to unusual ambulatory activities. That is all. Dravthalan and their team had switched to mobile observation mode, following their extremely unauthorized and extremely dead test candidate through the facility's winding corridors. They maintained what they considered a safe distance. Though given humanity's track record of impossible feats, the concept of safe distance was probably just another universal constant they'd have to revise. Remarkable cardiovascular efficiency for someone without active circulation, Rinzel noted, their scientific curiosity gradually overcoming their terror. Though I do question his navigational choices. This is the 3rd time he's passed the same quantum physics lab. Actually, Tovrima interjected, checking their data tablet. According to the facility layout, he's been consistently moving toward the nearest exit point. The fact that it appears to be circular movement is due to our station's non-Euclidean architecture. Yes, because what this situation really needed was a violation of spatial geometry to go along with its violation of organic law, Dravthalan muttered. Their antennae hadn't stopped twitching since this whole debacle began. They watched as Marcus paused at an intersection, head tilted as if listening. A group of maintenance drones hovered past, then immediately reversed direction with electronic squeals of alarm when they registered his presence. Smart machines, Dravthalan commented. At least something in this facility still respects the natural order of things. Chief Rinzel's scales had shifted to the bright orange of scientific excitement. Look at these readings. The test candidate's cellular structure is adapting. It's as if his individual cells have collectively decided that termination is merely a suggestion. Of course they have. Drev Thalon didn't even bother to hide their exasperation. Because apparently Terran biology operates on pure audacity. Quick, someone check if sheer determination has suddenly become a viable energy source. Actually, Tovrima began, tapping their tablet. That was sarcasm, junior researcher. Do not perform that analysis. I refuse to discover that humans have somehow weaponized optimism into an alternative metabolic pathway. Their discussion was interrupted by the approach of Security Chief Zargoran, whose usually imposing presence was somewhat undermined by their obvious agitation. Would someone care to explain why I'm getting reports of a walking corpse asking for directions to the nearest spaceport? Ah, Security Chief. Drev Thalon's mandibles clicked in what they hoped was a professionally reassuring manner. We're conducting an extended observation of Terran resilience parameters. The test candidate asked for directions. Rinzel interjected, stylus poised eagerly. Yes, Zargoran's external plates rattled in distress. From Dr. Yen Trix in quantum computing, who I might add is now requesting immediate transfer to our deep space algae farming station. How did the interaction go? Tovrima asked, recording device at the ready. According to Dr. Yen Trix's rather hysterical report, the Terran apologized for bleeding on the floor, explained that he had a cat to feed, and asked if the gift shop sold spaceship fuel. Drev Thalon's antennae drooped so low they nearly touched their faceplates. Please tell me Yen Trix didn't. Oh, they did. Gave him complete directions, including a recommendation for the least monitored docking bay. Zargoran's secondary arms gestured in frustration. Apparently they were too shocked by being politely addressed by a dead person to do anything else. Fascinating social adaptation, Rinzel murmured, still taking notes. The test candidate maintains expected cultural courtesies despite severe organic compromise. And look, he's even trying to clean up the vital fluid trail with his remaining intact sleeve. Indeed, Marcus was making a valiant, if ultimately futile attempt to mop up his own blood trail with what remained of his research gown. The fact that he was still producing fresh blood despite having no functional circulatory system was just another detail that Drev Thalon was firmly choosing not to think about. We have to stop him before he reaches the spaceport, Zargoran insisted. The diplomatic implications alone, oh, yes. Excellent idea. Drev Thalon's voice dripped with sarcasm. Let's antagonize the being who's currently treating termination as an optional state of existence. I'm sure that will end well for everyone involved. A new voice crackled over their personal communicators. Chief researcher, the test candidate has entered the civilian sector. He's asking about public transport schedules. Drev Thalon's entire body slumped in resignation. Of course he is, because apparently Terran public transportation systems are now going to be forced to update their policies to account for non-living passengers. Should we inform the transit authority? Tovrima asked uncertainly. And tell them what? Please be advised that your next passenger may be technically deceased, but is very polite about it. Drev Thalon's scientific composure was rapidly crumbling. No, we observe, we document, and then we drink copious amounts of fermented nutrient solution and try to pretend this entire incident never happened. He's negotiating for a ticket now, Rinzel reported, watching through their enhanced vision scope. The ticket agent appears to be giving him a senior citizen discount, because being dead apparently qualifies one for reduced fare rates, Drev Thalon noted hysterically. Wonderful. Add redefinition of public transport eligibility criteria to our list of Terran-induced societal disruptions. The gathered observers watched as Marcus successfully purchased a ticket, thanked the thoroughly confused agent, and proceeded to join an orderly queue for the next departing transport, all while maintaining exactly zero vital signs. I don't suppose, Zargoran ventured hopefully, that anyone has considered just asking him to fill out an official exit request form? 3 sets of alien eyes turned to stare at the security chief. What? He's been very cooperative so far, apart from the whole refusing to acknowledge his own termination thing. Dravthalon felt a headache building in all 4 of their brain nodes. Security chief, with all due respect, I don't think standard bureaucratic procedures apply to someone who's currently treating the cessation of organic functions as a minor inconvenience. Actually, Tove Rima piped up, checking their tablet yet again. According to his initial intake forms, he does have a history of excellent compliance with paperwork requirements. The public transport vessel was experiencing what could only be described as an unprecedented situation in its service history. Its AI had been programmed to handle all manner of passengers, from methane-breathing Jovians to silicon-based crystalline entities. However, its customer satisfaction protocols were drawing a complete blank on how to categorize the current passenger in seat 23 billion. Would you like to purchase a refreshment, sir? The service drone inquired of Marcus, hovering uncertainly beside his seat. Though I note that your current organic status may impact your ability to air digest. Just water, thanks, Marcus replied politely, attempting to sit up straighter, despite several non-functional vertebrae. Need to stay hydrated for Captain Pause. 3 rows behind, disguised in what they believed were inconspicuous civilian outfits, but actually made them look like extras from a particularly flamboyant space opera. Dravthalon and their team continued their observation. Test candidate maintains cognitive awareness of basic physiological needs, Rinzel whispered into their recording device, while simultaneously ignoring the fact that said physiological needs should be entirely irrelevant due to complete systemic failure. Please stop narrating, Dravthalon hissed, trying to sink lower in their seat, a difficult feat given their species' exoskeletal structure. We're supposed to be conducting covert surveillance. I don't think we're fooling anyone, Tove Rima commented, gesturing to their ridiculous attempt at a disguise. 3 aliens in sparkly tourist ponchos and oversized novelty hats that read I Local Star Cluster. A small child to rows ahead kept turning around to stare at them, occasionally whispering to their parent, "Look mama, space scientists playing dress up. At least we're not the most conspicuous passengers," Dravthalon muttered, nodding toward Marcus, who was now carefully arranging his partially detached limbs into a more comfortable position while making small talk with his seatmate about local weather patterns. The seatmate in question, a multi-dimensional being composed entirely of shifting geometric shapes, seemed remarkably unfazed by their conversation partner's obvious mortality status. Then again, beings who existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously tended to have a rather flexible view of what constituted alive. Fascinating social dynamics, Rinzel couldn't help noting. The test candidate maintains standard conversational protocols despite clearly visible organic compromise. Current topic, comparative analysis of precipitation, patterns on various worlds. Yes, because nothing says normal public transport interaction quite like discussing meteorological phenomena while actively decomposing. Double quotes. Dravthalon's antennae twitched in agitation. I don't suppose anyone thought to check how long this journey takes. Some of us are wearing environmental suits with limited filtration capacity. Tove Rima consulted their tablet. According to the schedule, we should reach Earth's solar system in approximately 47 standard hours. Another 47? Sweet crystalline ancestors. Dravthalon's exoskeleton paled visibly. Has anyone considered the preservation implications of this timeline? As if on cue, a small notification chimed through the transport vessel. Attention passengers. Due to unexpected solar wind patterns, our environmental systems will be operating at higher capacity. We thank you for your patience and remind all organically challenged travelers that complementary stasis fields are available upon request. Marcus raised his hand politely to summon another service drone. Excuse me, but would it be possible to get one of those stasis fields? I'd hate to cause any inconvenience to my fellow passengers. The drone, displaying admirable professional composure, cheerfully deployed a shimmering force field around him. Of course, sir. Although I should note that technically, according to transport regulations, you should have declared your non-living status during booking. Oh, sorry about that, Marcus replied earnestly. It's a rather recent development. Happened during a research trial about ... double quotes. He checked a watch that had stopped several hours ago. 4 hours and 23 minutes ago. Still getting used to it, to be honest. Drevthalon made a sound that their species typically reserved for witnessing astronomical disasters. He's apologizing for failing to update his vital status on his travel documentation, because obviously that's the protocol concern we should be focusing on right now. Should we ... double quotes, Tovrima ventured hesitantly. Perhaps offer our assistance, given that we are technically responsible for his current condition. Absolutely not, Drevthalon declared. The moment we admit involvement is the moment we have to start filling out paperwork. Do you have any idea how many forms are required for accidentally discovered Terran immortality through bureaucratic oversight? 73 standard forms, 12 appendices, and at least one interpretive dance describing the breakthrough moment, Pix Allah supplied helpfully. According to updated xenoscience protocols, after the humans can photosynthesize if they're stubborn enough about an incident last cycle, their discussion was interrupted by a commotion several rows ahead. Another passenger, a gelatinous entity that closely resembled what humans called a raspberry jelly, had begun to vibrate in distress. Is anyone here a doctor? The ship's AI announced. We have a passenger experiencing unexpected phase shifts. Before any of the disguised research team could react, Marcus was already moving, his stasis field shifting to accommodate his movement. I have medical training, he announced, making his way to the distressed passenger with only minimal loss of structural integrity. He's going to attempt emergency medical care while technically deceased, Drevthalon observed with a mixture of horror and resignation. Because apparently being dead is no excuse for ignoring one's professional obligations, they watched as Marcus competently assessed the gelatinous being's condition carefully, adjusting its molecular frequency with borrowed medical tools. The fact that he had to occasionally pause to reattach his own fingers seemed to bother no one except the increasingly hysterical research team. Patient stabilized, Marcus reported professionally to the ship's medical AI. Just a standard phase misalignment, though I'd recommend a follow-up with a specialist, particularly one familiar with non-Newtonian life forms. Thank you, Doctor, the AI responded. Would you like to register for our medical emergency response program? We offer compensation for in-flight assistance, though I notice your current vital status might complicate the payment processing. Oh, no need. Marcus waved off the offer with his mostly attached hand. Happy to help, though if you could note in the ship's log that I maintain professional certification requirements even post-mortem, that would be appreciated. My license renewal is coming up. Back in their seats, Drevthalon's team sat in stunned silence. Did he just ... double quotes Tovrima began, perform emergency medical care while personally exempting himself from the entire concept of organic functions? Yes, Drevthalon's voice had taken on the distant quality of someone who had transcended normal scientific shock and achieved a higher state of disbelief at maintaining professional development requirements regardless of vital status to the observation log. Should we be concerned, Pix Allah asked carefully, that he seems to be setting precedents for post-mortem professional practice? At this point, Drevthalon replied, watching as Marcus carefully returned to his seat while thanking the ship's AI for the stasis field adjustment. I'm more concerned about what his cat's veterinarian is going to say about all this. Earth's solar system border control was having what they diplomatically termed a non-standard day. The officer currently staring at their scanner readout had already requested 3 system recalibrations and was seriously considering early retirement. Sir, they addressed Marcus through the intercom, mandibles clicking nervously. There seems to be a discrepancy with your life signs scan. Ah, yes, Marcus nodded apologetically, standing. perfectly still in the scanning chamber while occasionally adjusting various non-attached body parts. Would it help if I filed a status update form? I believe there's a standard procedure for significant organic changes during interstellar travel. Behind the one-way observation glass, Dravthalan's team watched in mounting horror as their escape test candidate attempted to navigate immigration protocols. "He's filling out Form X to 7B, Ren," Zell whispered in fascination, their scales shifting to a shade of green typically associated with scientific bewilderment. "That's the notification of substantial physiological alteration during transit document. He's actually citing the correct subsection for cessation of vital functions." "Of course he is," Dravthalan muttered, their antennae now permanently twisted into stress curves. "Because obviously the most pressing concern right now is maintaining accurate bureaucratic records of his unprecedented defiance of organic law." The border control officer was now rapidly cycling through various official protocols on their screen. "Sir, Well, technically according to Statute 5.9.3, arrival of deceased organic matter requires quarantine procedures. But given that you're actively completing paperwork, so would quarantine be better?" Marcus asked earnestly, pausing in his extremely neat handwriting. "I wouldn't want to create any procedural difficulties, though I do need to feed my cat within the next solar rotation. Would there be a way to expedite the process? I'm happy to fill out any necessary forms." The officer's compound eyes darted between their regulation manual and the politely decomposing Terran before them. That is ... One moment, please." They hit the calm button for their supervisor with perhaps more force than strictly necessary. Meanwhile, in the observation area, Tovrima was frantically taking notes on their tablet. Test candidate displays remarkable understanding of interstellar bureaucratic procedures while simultaneously rendering them completely meaningless. Possible hypothesis: Terran administrative competence transcends physical state of being. "Do not develop that hypothesis," Dravthalan ordered sharply. "The last thing we need is to discover that humans have somehow weaponized paperwork efficiency into a form of immortality. The Administrative Sciences Division is still recovering from the humans can file taxes in for Dimensions incident." A new official had arrived at the border control station, a being of obvious senior rank, judging by the impressive array of ceremonial rubber stamps adorning their carapace. "I understand we have a documentation anomaly," Senior Administrator Rax Polvin I officer chittered nervously. "The passenger has correctly filed all required forms, including retroactive vital status updates, but our systems are having difficulty processing. Well, ... double quotes the fact that I'm technically deceased," Marcus offered helpfully. "I did include a brief medical explanation in Appendix C, though I'm afraid some of the details are classified due to ongoing research protocols." He glanced apologetically in the direction of the observation window, causing Dravthalan's team to duck behind their seats with varying degrees of success. The senior administrator's eye stalks wavered between the impeccably completed forms and the increasingly non-intact but unfailingly polite Terran before them. "This is unprecedented." "Oh, not entirely," Marcus replied cheerfully, retrieving a slightly blood-stained reference guide from what remained of his pocket. "According to the Interstellar Transit Authority Guidelines, Section 47.3.2, there was a case involving a quantum-shifted Andromedian who existed in a state of simultaneous life and termination. They were eventually granted entry under the Exceptional Circumstances Clause." There was a profound silence in the border control station, broken only by the soft sound of various pieces of Marcus occasionally hitting the floor, followed by his quiet, "Oops, pardon me," as he retrieved them. "He's citing legal precedent," Pixala whispered in awe. "A being with no current organic functions is arguing interspatial immigration law and winning." Dravthalan had progressed beyond normal stress responses and was now experiencing what their species termed terminal bureaucratic enlightenment. Add mastery of administrative law transcending mortal constraints to the observation log, and someone check if the High Council has a procedure for declaring paperwork itself a form of supernatural force. The senior administrator had finally reached a decision, their stamp-bearing appendages clicking rhythmically in thought. Well, given the thorough documentation and cited precedent, I suppose we can process your entry under Special Circumstance Protocol 7X, though I'll need you to complete Form J995, Declaration of Intent to maintain public order despite unusual organic status. Of course, Marcus agreed readily, already reaching for another form. Would you like that in triplicate? I noticed your system uses the traditional Betelgeusian filing method. How double quotes Dravthalen's voice cracked slightly. How does he even know that? According to his personnel file, Kix Nera supplied. Checking their tablet, he once took an evening course in comparative galactic administrative procedures. Apparently, he found it relaxing. Relaxing? Dravthalen repeated numbly. He found bureaucratic systems analysis relaxing? Why am I not surprised that the Terran who refuses to acknowledge termination also treats paperwork as a hobby? They watched as Marcus completed form after form with meticulous precision, occasionally pausing only to ensure various body parts remained in roughly the correct position. The border control staff had progressed from horror to reluctant admiration of his administrative prowess. Sign here, and that, but data. Can you still provide a DNA sample? The senior administrator inquired delicately. Would cellular degradation affect the validation process? Marcus asked thoughtfully. I suppose we could add a notation under subsection 1 to be alternative organic authentication methods for non-standard vital states. He's making up new, bureaucratic procedures on the spot, Pixala noted with professional respect. The forms are literally evolving to accommodate his condition. Wonderful. Dravthalen's antennae had now tied themselves into actual knots. Not only has he defied termination, but he's also restructuring galactic administrative protocols. I don't suppose anyone has considered the philosophical implications of a filing system that acknowledges post-mortem persistence. Actually, Kix Nera began excitedly. If we cross-reference this with the theoretical frameworks established during the humans can file multi-dimensional patent applications, controversy, no. Dravthalen's interruption carried the desperate edge of someone who had seen too many fundamental universal constants casually violated in one day. We are not opening that particular quantum filing cabinet. I refuse to be responsible for humans revolutionizing termination through superior organizational skills. The border control AI chimed pleasantly. Entry processing complete. Welcome to Earth's solar system, Mr. Chun. Please ensure all partially attached body parts clear the scanner before proceeding. And do remember to file your post-arrival vital status updates within 30 standard rotations. Thank you, Marcus replied cordially, gathering his various forms and body parts with equal care. Though given current circumstances, would it be more appropriate to file Form L27 for permanent vital status modification? Marcus's apartment building was experiencing what the resident AI delicately termed a unique administrative challenge. Standing in the lobby, carefully holding various parts of himself together with admirable poise, the recently deceased but remarkably active tenant was engaged in a fascinating discussion about housing regulations. According to subsection 7.2 of the residential agreement, Marcus was explaining to the hovering building management drone, there's actually no specific requirement for tenants to be technically alive. The organic status clause only addresses unauthorized transformative events like spontaneous metamorphosis or unplanned dimensional shifting. Dravthalen and their increasingly frazzled research team lurk behind a decorative quantum fern, their tourist disguises now supplemented with fake mustaches, despite the fact that none of their species possessed faces compatible with facial hair. He's arguing tenant rights, Dravthalen whispered in disbelief while actively shedding non-vital tissue matter, and he's winning again. The building AIS logic circuits are showing signs of existential distress, Kix Nera noted, monitoring their tablet. I believe it's attempting to reconcile standard occupancy protocols with whatever this is, the drone bobbed uncertainly. But sir, the insurance implications alone. Oh, I've already submitted Form I-47X to the Galactic Insurance Registry, Marcus replied cheerfully, retrieving a slightly gore-stained document from what remained of his shirt pocket. It's the new rider they developed after the humans can survive in vacuum if they're late for work. Incident. C. All properly notarized by the Border Control Senior Administrator. The building AI made a sound remarkably similar to a sigh. Very well, Mr. Chun, though we will need to update the maintenance protocols for the cleaning drones. Of course. I've taken the liberty of drafting a proposed amendment to the building sanitation guidelines. Market produced yet another form, this one with helpful color coding and cross-referenced. Appendices. I've included specific provisions for various types of post-mortem residue. Behind the fern, Pixala's scales had shifted to the bright purple of academic excitement. Test candidate demonstrates remarkable foresight in addressing practical implications of his condition, adding proactive posthumous property management to the observation log. Look, Kix Nera pointed toward the elevator. He's even filling out a special notice for the other tenants. Dear neighbors, please be advised of slight modifications to my organic status. We'll maintain standard noise levels and implement additional cleaning protocols. Apologies for any inconvenience, because obviously, Dravthalon muttered, the polite thing to do when defying fundamental laws of nature is to inform your neighbors via proper channels. They watched as Marcus made his way to the elevator, carefully pressing the button with what appeared to be his third attempt at reattaching his index finger. The doors opened to reveal a startled delivery drone. Ah, perfect timing, Marcus exclaimed. That must be Captain Paw's automated food delivery. The drone performed several rapid scans, its programming clearly struggling with the scenario. Sir, according to my sensors, you appear to be recently deceased. Yes, Marcus nodded apologetically. But you'll find I've already updated my delivery preferences to include non-standard vital status in the special instructions section. And I've completed Form P23 for continuation of pet care services despite terminal inconvenience. Dravthalon's antennae had progressed beyond mere stress knots and were now forming complex geometric patterns. He filed paperwork for post-mortem pet care. Of course he did, because apparently termination is merely an administrative category requiring proper documentation. The elevator doors opened on Marcus's floor, and the research team scrambled to maintain their increasingly absurd surveillance. They reached his apartment just in time to see a magnificent fluffy creature, presumably the famous Captain Paws, regard its owner with typical feline indifference. Sorry I'm late, buddy, Marcus addressed the cat, carefully setting down the food delivery while various non-attached body parts arranged themselves nearby. Had a bit of a situation at the research facility. But I made sure to update all the relevant paperwork. Captain Paws, displaying the universal constant of cat behavior that even humans couldn't defy, simply yawned and sauntered over to inspect his dinner. Should we, Kixnara ventured, perhaps explain to him that his continued functionality is scientifically impossible? Oh yes. Dravthalon's voice dripped with sarcasm. Let's explain the laws of biology to the being who just successfully argued his way through interstellar immigration while technically deceased. I'm sure he'll be fascinated by our clearly incomplete understanding of life and termination. Inside the apartment, Marcus was now carefully organizing his collected forms into a neat folder labeled Status Change Documentation Vital with a subfolder for Temporary Corporeal Discontinuity Procedures. Adding advanced posthumous organizational skills to the final observation notes, Pixela whispered, their stylist scratching frantically. Speaking of documentation, Kixnara added nervously, shouldn't we be concerned about the fact that he's probably going to file an incident report about our research protocols? Dravthalon's entire exoskeleton paled. Sweet crystalline ancestors, he's going to submit paperwork about how he died during our trial, isn't he? And knowing him, it will be perfectly formatted, extensively cross-referenced, and submitted in quintuplicate to all relevant authorities. They watched in mounting horror as Marcus settled at his desk, pulled out a fresh stack of forms, and began writing with methodical precision. Captain Paws hopped up to supervise the documentation process, purring contentedly. "I don't suppose," Dravthalon suggested weakly, "that anyone knows the proper filing procedure for test candidate exceeds termination through superior administrative competence." Actually, Pixela offered, according to the updated xenoscience protocols after the humans can achieve digitization through excessive email management case. "No," Dravthalon interrupted firmly. "No more protocols, no more forms, no more perfectly documented violations of universal constants. We are going to return to our facility, submit our resignations, and apply for positions studying something nice and simple, like quantum physics or paradox mechanics." "Too late," Kixnara reported glumly, checking their tablet. "Marcus has already submitted our incident report to the High Council with 17 appendices, including a proposed new classification system for continued functionality." Despite technical expiration, through the apartment window, they could see Marcus contentedly organizing his paperwork while occasionally reattaching various body parts, Captain Paws supervising the whole process with feline dignity. A small notification popped up on their tablets. Marcus had already received a confirmation of receipt from the High Council, along with a commendation for his excellent documentation practices. "Well," Dravthalon said finally, their antennae drooping in resignation, "at least we can say we've advanced the field of xenoscience. Even if the advancement as humans can literally bureaucracy their way through termination, should we update the official species classification?" Pixela asked. "Yes," Dravthalon sighed. "Add a new note, humanity the only known species that treats both termination and paperwork as optional suggestions and is somehow better at the paperwork." Behind them, Marcus had begun filling out the forms for his next week's work schedule, carefully noting his updated vital status under special considerations. Captain Paws, having finished his dinner, curled up on top of the completed paperwork pile, perfectly positioned to shed on all the signature lines. Some universal constants, it seemed, remained unchanged after all. The end.